It's a huge risk. And so it's not a fair fight. They're going into this with uneven risks on either side.
She used the California law as background for her dismissal.
It's just that in this case, it looks abusive.
Ryan Reynolds built a worldwide reputation on sarcasm and charm, but there's an undercurrent in his story that few ever see. One that pulls in secret deals, hush-hush power moves, and a new Me Too law that might flip the odds in ways nobody expected.
He's basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not gonna have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, you know, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite in my viewpoint. Absolutely no person, I don't care how funny you think you are in Hollywood, would want their precious daughter, of all people, to make comments about Hugh Jackman's penis being in their father's mouth. And that's what he says. So he kind of basically forced his daughter to do the line, or else he's gonna replace her as an actress in this movie. She's 7 years old, you guys.
The internet adores him and his wife, Blake Lively, for their witty humor and red carpet appearances. But peel back the PR facade, and you uncover lawsuits, backstage manipulations, and jaw-dropping allegations involving their inner circle. Is Hollywood's golden couple as untouchable as they seem, or have they just become experts at hiding cracks beneath a glossy surface?
Blake has expectedly filed to be dismissed from the lawsuit against her. Her argument that she is presenting is that the lawsuit in and of itself is illegal, okay, because the matter at hand is pertaining to sexual harassment.
The spark that lit this firestorm is as old as Hollywood itself, conflicting stories of who did what, who lied, and who's truly pulling the strings. Depending on whom you believe, this legal saga began when Blake Lively lodged claims of harassment against Justin Baldoni.
Law out here in California, Code of Civil Procedure 47.1 is a problem for the Baldoni camp.
How big of a problem is it?
Claims that catapulted both sides into a nasty back and forth of defamation suits, media leaks, and an entire chain reaction of revelations. At first glance, it looks like a simple he said, she said. But what's beneath is a tangled web that extends to some of the most powerful players in the entertainment industry.
And they want us to believe that Justin Baldoni is the creep in all of this. This is running parallel to him shouting at Justin Baldoni in a penthouse about his wife being uncomfortable.
Early on, it seemed like just another celebrity spat, overshadowed by tabloids chasing red carpet gossip. Yet when the name Ryan Reynolds appeared in the legal files, the story stopped being about two people and turned into a scathing indictment of how far some stars will go to protect their brand. Claims emerged that Reynolds, champion of witty one-liners and fatherhood jokes, had forced his 7-year-old daughter onto the set of his Deadpool franchise, instructing her to recite lines about male anatomy.
He's basically looking at his 7-year-old and being like, well, if you're not gonna have what it takes to read this line, which happens to be about, you know, Wolverine's penis, then I'll just go find another actor. Total sicko, the exact opposite in my viewpoint.
Hollywood is no stranger to questionable parenting calls, but this alleged fiasco struck a deep nerve. How could someone who constantly trades on his devoted dad persona push his child into an explicit cameo? For many, that was the first alarming clue that the Ryan Reynolds we see on talk shows and social media might not match the man behind closed doors. Then came the bigger irony. While making a child say lines about X-rated gags in a film, he was also privately labeling Justin Baldoni a predator. The hypocrisy seemed blatant. Accuse someone of moral corruption while you're apparently ignoring your own moral lines.
But here's the real problem for him, and our concern for Baldoni is if he goes forward and he loses his countersuit based on defamation, there's a huge risk to him because he then has to pay Lively's attorney's fees, treble damages, punitive damages. It's a huge risk.
As if that weren't enough, Lively's legal team claims Baldoni admitted she believed her own allegations, arguing that believing in one's story automatically dismisses any notion of malicious intent. If that sounds like a slippery slope, it is, because it essentially means you can claim anything, so long as you believe it's true and still be shielded by the law. Critics argue that while this legislation was meant for legitimate victims with minimal resources, it's now being appropriated by Hollywood's elite with unlimited means.
California law relative to the lawsuit against Lively for defamation is a little problematic. So we have not seen the opposition yet that the Wayfair parties are going to make to the motion to dismiss filed by Lively, but I suspect that they're going to want New York over California. It's a problem that wouldn't be there if they had done this lawsuit a year and a half ago. So this is a brand new law. And what it does is it requires Baldoni to prove a higher burden than he would otherwise have to prove in this defamation lawsuit.
At this point, the story widens well beyond a family feud. Allegations of media manipulation began swirling when legal documents suggested that the New York Times might have coordinated with Lively's camp, drafting or at least shaping the articles before official filings even occurred. The Times, typically shielded under fair reporting privilege, might lose that defense if they indeed co-wrote or shaped the story rather than simply reporting it. Complicating things further, the PR firm Jones Work, led by Stephanie Jones, found itself accused of flipping sides. It was originally hired by Justin Baldoni's company, Wayfair, to handle their communications. But if lawsuits are correct, Jones ended up sharing or manipulating internal messages, sometimes obtained from employees' phones under suspicious conditions, to strengthen Lively's and Reynolds' narrative. That's not standard corporate crisis management. That's espionage in a PR disguise.
And then the jury has to look at the totality of that evidence and say, is that malice? And there's certainly evidence that would lead one to believe a jury could find that.
High-stakes lawsuits have always attracted media frenzy. But the pattern here suggests something more orchestrated. Emails indicate that Lively's legal team might have shared bullet points with certain outlets before official complaints were filed, ensuring coverage would align neatly with her viewpoint. This behind-the-scenes shaping of public perception flips the script on neutral journalism, painting it closer to a strategic PR campaign designed to cancel Justin Baldoni well in advance. That's a bold claim, of course, one that Lively's and the paper's representatives deny. Still, the evidence keeps piling up, from suspicious publishing timestamps to entire paragraphs and articles that read like they were drafted by the same hand behind her official statements. If proven, it could be catastrophic for the Times' reputation, forever changing how the public views their Hollywood coverage.
Those are not points that a judge decides. Those are not legal determinations. Those are factual determinations. And we leave all of our factual decisions to a fact finder. In this case, that'll be a jury. So Brian Friedman more than likely will get past.
It's not just the star couple and their alleged conspirators feeling heat. Hollywood at large is reevaluating how it handles big-name allegations. For years, the standard approach was to blanket negative press in a wave of countersuits, well-placed articles, and star-fueled interviews. Now, with social media dissecting every detail, it's much harder to bury conflicting truths. Audiences have become amateur sleuths, cross-referencing statements, comparing timestamps, and identifying potential manipulations. The entire climate is shifting from blind celebrity worship to a heightened scrutiny. The cracks in Ryan and Blake's public armor are obvious. Once heralded as the ultimate couple goals, they now face internet pushback for their perceived hypocrisy. Where they once posted viral couple joke tweets, they're now more cautious about direct engagement, likely because any casual slip could bolster the other side's defamation claims. Underneath the comedic tweets, brand deals, and glitzy public appearances, we see something raw. A power couple possibly abusing leverage, a top agent dethroned for personal loyalties, and a media landscape that might be complicit. If nothing else, the turbulence proves that illusions of perfect marriages or wholesome fatherhood can shatter in an instant. Audiences are left wondering how much of the celebrity narrative is genuine and how much is meticulously orchestrated to keep the big names looking spotless. The final verdict isn't in. Baldoni's fight is far from over, and Lively's legal team won't back down. Reynolds continues living the comedic persona on social platforms, albeit more carefully. Meanwhile, those close to the case whisper about bombshell documents yet to be revealed. Documents that could unravel reputations for good. If you thought the accusations of harassment, forced child performances, and media meddling were wild, brace yourself. Hollywood's quiet corridors hold secrets that might emerge as soon as the next hearing. Because in this city of glamorous illusions, the real shocker is that the truth can strike when the cameras stop rolling. And in the end, no curated persona, no high-profile endorsement, and no fancy legal shield can outrun a narrative that refuses to stay buried. Stay alert, because the unraveling is only beginning. When legal lines blur and moral compasses spin, everything you think you know can flip on its head in a single headline. And as the illusions crumble, one pressing question remains. Once the masks come off, will there be any Hollywood heroes left standing?